Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, let's dive right into this one because today we are cracking open a truly fascinating and honestly, deeply unsettling file from the archives. We're looking at case study 1898-RL. You might know it as the Rathlin Transfiguration. Now, I want you to think of this not just as some dry historical event, but as a suspenseful, incredibly dark maritime folk tale come to life. It's a chilling record of a solitary lighthouse keeper named Elias and his absolute, terrifying psychological dissolution.
So, I want you to consider this chilling question for a second. What happens when the light meant to save the living becomes a dinner bell for the dead? It's a heavy thought, right? But this establishes the entire central conflict of our explainer today. We're essentially looking at the ultimate clash between the rigid, comforting logic of Victorian-era engineering and the ancient, predatory terror of the encroaching sea.
Act 1. The Needle of Stone. And this brilliantly illustrates the core irony here. Back in 1898, placing a massive tower on a desolate rock was viewed as this ultimate triumph of human logic over the pneumatic anarchy of the ocean waves. But for Keeper Elias, this beacon of industry absolutely did not protect him. The horrifying reality is that his sanctuary slowly morphed into a monument of bone. It basically became a trap.
To really understand Elias's breakdown, we have to talk about the uncanny, or the unheimlich. Elias isn't just watching things go wrong around him. He's physically feeling his own reality turn on him. It starts subtle. The comforting rhythms of his strict Victorian order are just quietly, systematically distorted into predatory anomalies. The true horror here doesn't start with monsters, you know? It starts with the everyday environment weaponizing itself against him.
Act 2. The Uncanny Domestic Distortion.
Imagine being trapped in this cramped stone cylinder, miles from the shore, and suddenly realizing your home has completely betrayed you. The source file notes, the familiar, the hiss of the oil lamp, and the salt crust on a tea tin becomes off. It's this creeping, invisible threat. You're entirely alone, and suddenly the mundane hiss of your lamp sounds malicious. Even the salt on a tin looks strange and unnatural. It's absolute claustrophobia.
Then, his madness deepens as these distortions escalate into what the record calls impossible biologies. Elias is forced to listen to his wife singing, but the voice stretches on and on, far, far beyond the capacity of human breath. It's this terrifying, almost graphic novel-style breach of natural laws that literally makes your blood run cold. But the most chilling detail is this. Elias walks up to a mirror, fully expecting to see a tired, dutiful keeper looking back at him. Instead, he stares back at his own reflection, sporting the horizontal pupils of a goat. Just imagine the sheer heart-stopping panic of that moment. He realizes his own reflection is inherently other. He is becoming entirely alienated from his own humanity. From there, every trusted object becomes a threat. Even his meals become a source of profound dread. He looks down at his dinner plate, and his mind twists the food into a threat. The meat sitting there suddenly mimics the jagged, predatory rocks waiting beneath the crashing waves outside. This isn't just magic. It is a profound, total, psychological collapse. His fragile sense of reality is completely, irreversibly shattered.
Act 3. Ringing the Abyssal Dinner Bell. So, the crucial point is, this massive beacon was designed to be an artificial sun, right? Meant to literally push back the night. But Elias realizes it is actually functioning as a bridge across the veil. Instead of guiding living sailors to safety, this blinding light is actively pulling the salt-heavy Slua, the restless, unforgiving dead, straight from their silent ocean graves. It's a horrifying inversion. His desperate mandate to preserve life is actually what's summoning the restless dead.
Act 4. A total Jungian collapse.
The intense isolation on this desolate rock acts like a pressure cooker for this claustrophobic 7-day siege. We go from days of uncanny distortions, the goat eyes, the twisted meat, culminating on day 7. A maritime banshee, acting as a conductor for these shadows, completely shatters his Victorian desire for logic and order. By day 8, it forces him to abandon his post and flee out into the grim geometry of the coast.
So why did he flee? Well, it all comes down to this deeply tragic realization. The record says, the spirit wearing the skin of his life was a projection of his own suppressed guilt. His deeply held internal guilt was the true architect of his downfall, collaborating with the primordial sea. He realizes that the sea is a jealous god,
and all his shiny industrial progress was just a fragile, temporary pattern projected against a primordial gray that cares absolutely nothing for human life.
Act 5. Inventory for the leap. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is when we zoom out from Elias's specific nightmare, the Abyssal Record unpacks 4 incredibly grim themes. Theme 1 highlights our industrial hubris, that fatal delusion that we can somehow tame the wild. Theme 2 is the moral uncanny, showing how extreme isolation breaks the self. Theme 3 reveals maritime predation, meaning the sea isn't merely an environment, it's a relentless collector. And Theme 4 warns of the fluidity of the veil, showing just how easily the boundary between the living and the dead washes away.
Elias suffered localized haunts, mostly the Banshee and the Slaw, who kind of just act as conductors for the restless dead. But pending investigation files warn of something far, far worse: the Murrow. Unlike earthly ghosts, the Murrow are an ancient, soul-stealing legend born in the absolute dead space of the ocean. The extreme, suffocating isolation of the lighthouse strips away all your psychological defenses, making a keeper uniquely, terrifyingly vulnerable to these primal, ancient predators.
Ultimately, the whole case file leaves us with this heavy, profound sense of the futility of Victorian engineering. The brilliant beacon that Elias tended to so desperately, it's reduced to nothing more than an inventory clerk's candle. It doesn't fight back the dark at all. It merely illuminates the sea's dark history, essentially helping the abyss count its endless collection of stolen human souls.
So, I want to leave you with one final, provocative thought. If the light we serve, our logic, our technology, our sense of order, is just a temporary pattern against a primordial gray, what ancient horrors truly await in the dead space? The story of Keeper Elias is a chilling reminder of how incredibly fragile our reality really is when confronted by the vast, deep unknown. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and honestly, I hope this leaves you as intensely curious as I am about the uncharted, darker depths of our world.